Michael's got a case for us, and I hope it'll be engaging with everybody discussing options.
I'm going to talk very quickly here in the interest of getting some time back. So I think you're hearing that pharmaceutical treatment has caused us to be more aggressive in terms of preserving architecture. Once it's lost, it's unlikely to get it back. And I'm going to sort of frame a little bit about some of these changes with a few cases. And this is a type 1 kid with SMA. This is a kid that would die in the first 2 decades of life earlier. He's a kid who at 6 years of age was really in trouble, who I put a growing rod in, and you see he's still getting Spinraza now 11 years later. The type 1 kids are kids that we're looking at because when treated early, there's more hope than ever. But as Brian showed, the parasol continues to be a problem. And we've worked on this with vectors over the years and then with hybrid techniques. This is one of Bob Campbell's many contributions saying, what if we can prop up the ribs? And it's a big operation when done like that. But more and more in the young kids, to stop the kids from going down the tubes early, we're using hybrid fixation, hybrid rib fixation. So you have 8 proximal rib anchors on this kid. This is a kid who, again, has a huge amount of kyphosis, thoracic insufficiency. I have an outrigger pushing up the kid's ribs, and he now is 5 years out, actually doing really well. What about big curves? Okay, this is an option even in big curves. This is one of 2 twins from North Carolina, both vent-dependent type 2 SMA, who come in, unfortunately, way after Brian's cutoff. So what are you going to do with a 7-year-old with a very big curve who's going down the tubes? Nick?
Yeah, I think that I remember when the first time you presented this case, not knowing exactly what the best option is. I mean, I think that the opportunity to get some traction and help this child get physiologically better before implantation is probably the first start.
And this is, I'm going to move quickly, but this is a kid that I put in traction for a short period of time and then used lots of proximal anchors. So I have screws and rib hooks. I have a magic in this kid. And the only thing well, maybe I did multiple things wrong, but one of the things I did wrong, which I'm not doing now, is in terms of my pelvic fixation. You have limited options to get control of these kids' pelvic obliquity. And think about dosing your surgery. If I ever need to convert this kid to a final fusion, now I've created a lot of work for myself converting that pelvic fixation and heterotopic bone and all that. And in fact, this kid tried to tell me that when he got infected and made me revise him to formal S2AI fixation. So that is my construct of choice these days for kids with SMA who I'm still growing. Definitive pelvic fixation, lots of proximal fixation, magics, and as Paul Sponseller said, we may never convert this kid after I run out of room on that magic because it's such a big operation in a sick kid. Last couple slides. Don't fuse the kids stem to stern. That's what I want to share with you because more and more these kids are coming in as young adults or as teenagers saying, well, I'm no longer a candidate for Spinraza. Avexis, Brian didn't get into it so well, is having some concerns about oral administration and about efficacy. There are a number of pipeline agents for SMA that all need to be given intrathecally when they hit the market. So if you fuse the kid from stem to stern, now I have to go in there and cut a big hole in the kid's spine or do something else, thread a pump. So to avoid that, this is what we've been doing. I've been doing what I call SMA constructs. We publish this, have 12 of them out there right now, oldest 6 years out. I avoid exposing, I treat it like a growing rod, the part of the spine that I think I'm going to skip. And I skip 2 or 3 levels so that the radiologist can consistently get drug in there. There are some people who are working on catheters. I think it's not quite ready for prime time, but this has worked really well. And again, I'm almost 5 years out with the oldest kid now at Stanford University, continuing to get drug. So medical treatment is more promising than ever, but as Brian says, you're not going to get back what you lost. You got to get to these kids relatively early. They are fragile, and I think if you get to them early enough, you can probably really make a big difference in pulmonary function. I really like rib fixation early on in these kids, and skip constructs if you need to fuse them. Thank you very much.
Great. Matt Otchin's going to do the next case, but questions for Michael while he's setting up. Anybody have a question or comment?
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
For both Brian and for Michael, we get into parasol as an issue, the rib outriggers really work in terms of bringing it one volume up, and does that change by capacity at all?
So I'll go. So I don't think it does because you still have then this rigid rib cage. So we've gone the other way. We're hyperventilating on BiPAP and hyperventilating at night to try to improve the compliance of the lung. So we're blowing the rib cage out as opposed to Mike has a scaffold that's supporting the rib cage.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know. These are not studies that we can do in a controlled manner. I have anecdotal kids who, after surgery, are off BiPAP at night. But is it because I'm taking their kyphosis away, or what parts of the surgery? So I don't really know. But I have pretty good X-ray evidence showing that the ribs that I am propping up are not parasoling like the ribs below. So it makes me think that we're doing something.